Clues to spot a narcissist in conversation. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling utterly drained, undervalued, and insignificant? Like you had hoped to connect or find common ground, but instead you're left feeling ignored, sidelined, or even a little foolish. If so, you might have been dealing with a narcissistic person. In this video, we'll expose the manipulative tricks narcissists use in conversations to boost their own egos while putting you down. I've spent decades researching the toxic connection between self-worth and narcissistic relationships. As a coach, author, and someone who has lived through these challenges, I know how difficult and damaging these interactions can be. I'll give you 6 undeniable clues to identify a narcissist mid-conversation, share personal stories to illustrate the red flags, and provide proven strategies to regain your power. By the end, you'll be equipped to spot a narcissist from a mile away and shut down their mind games for good. So subscribe and hit that bell, because recognizing a narcissist early can save you from years of emotional torment. Let's get started. Clue 1. The spotlight stealer as a clue to spot a narcissist in conversation. Have you ever felt like you were just an audience member trapped in someone else's one-person show? This is a huge red flag. When conversing with a narcissist, you'll notice the dialogue is permanently orbiting around them and their self-centered topics. They'll eagerly tell you stories painting themselves as either the heroic victor or perpetual victim deserving of your admiration and pity. The conversation becomes their personal stage, with you as the meaningless spectator. Now, as a caring, empathetic person, you may not pick up on this self-indulgence right away. You're genuinely interested in people and want to celebrate their wins and comfort their losses. But year after year with this narcissistic family member, you wait in vain for them to ask about your life, only to be served up another monologue about their cruel mother's deathbed behavior. To navigate this conversational black hole, use the probe and pivot method. First, ask a direct question to gauge their willingness to engage reciprocally, like, "Would you like to hear my experience with that?" If their response is more self-obsessed chatter without even acknowledging your question, it's time to pivot out of the conversation with a firm exit line. "I just remembered I have something to do. Let's catch up another time." Clue 2. The constant critic is a clue to spot a narcissist in conversation. Have you ever left a conversation feeling strangely diminished and questioning your self-worth? Even though nothing overtly insulting was said, you may have been a victim of the narcissist's subtle put-downs and judgments. Narcissists are masters of tearing others down to boost their own fragile egos. You'll notice them frequently make dismissive or outright cruel comments about people they know, family, co-workers, neighbors, sometimes even passing harsh judgments about you under the guise of just being honest. As an empathetic soul, you may initially excuse their rudeness rather than confronting the red flag. I remember being on a first date where my date spent 15 minutes brutally criticizing his own 10-year-old daughter's weight gain after a divorce. No hint of fatherly concern, just a disturbing willingness to dehumanize his own child to look superior. In those moments, the only appropriate response is to walk out on their toxic abuse. When facing a barrage of unwarranted judgment, use the acknowledge and test method. First, neutrally acknowledge their comment without agreeing. "I see," or "That's one perspective." Follow it up by asking an empathetic question like, "How do you think that made them feel?" to expose their lack of compassion. A narcissist will deflect, ignore, or double down, rather than show any self-awareness. Clue 3. The Advice Pundit is a major clue to spot a narcissist in conversation. Have you ever received unsolicited advice that somehow made your situation feel worse, especially when it seemed to come from someone who didn't truly have your best interests at heart? This is a narcissist's sneaky way of asserting their superiority while belittling you. They'll wrap their critique in a veil of faux concern, making you second-guess your own choices and feel ashamed for not doing things their way. I knew a narcissistic mother who, upon learning about her daughter's new menopause treatment, immediately shut it down, claiming a stronger woman would just power through it naturally like me. With those few words, she invalidated her daughter's struggles while boosting her own ego. When you receive this kind of unasked-for wisdom, use the reflect and redirect method. Pause and honestly evaluate. Does this advice feel supportive, or is it making me doubt myself? If the latter, you can diffuse the situation with, "It's definitely a nuanced issue." At this point, a narcissist will persist in forcing their advice while completely disregarding your perspective. Clue 4. The Conversational Bulldozer is assigned to spot a narcissist in conversation. Do you know that excruciating feeling when a conversation devolves into a fierce battle for airtime, with one party monopolizing discussion through sheer volume? This domineering dynamic is a core narcissistic strategy. The narcissist won't hesitate to constantly speak over you, cut you off, or blatantly interrupt to ensure their voice takes center stage, leaving you as a voiceless audience member. As someone polite who doesn't feel threatened by allowing others the floor, you likely haven't recognized this selfish conversation, hijacking for what it truly is, an overt power play to minimize your input. I vividly recall one meeting where I spent the entire hour feeling like a spectator at a heated tennis match, desperately raising my hand just to get a word in edgewise between the verbal barrage. By the end, I felt completely unseen and marginalized. To reclaim your voice, use the pause, question, and assert technique. When the narcissist is steamrolling the discussion, calmly pause, then ask, "Can I add something here?" This subtly challenges their dominance. Watch how they respond. A narcissist will either double down on blocking you out or dismissively allow a perfunctory comment before retaking control. Their reaction exposes their need for superiority over equal dialogue. Clue 5. The Criticism Combustor is a red flag to spot a narcissist in conversation. Have you ever been utterly blindsided by someone's aggressive or defensive outburst over what you thought was an innocuous comment or harmless attempt to understand their perspective? This gross overreaction is the calling card of the narcissist's pronounced sensitivity to any perceived criticism, disagreement, or challenge to their distorted worldview. For the narcissist, there is no neutral objectivity. You're either giving them complete reverence or you've committed high treason worthy of hostility. Merely offering a different viewpoint can trigger accusations of attacking them, causing them to lash out in fury. I can't count the times I walked on eggshells in conversations to avoid provoking my ex's wrath by saying the wrong thing. Like the time I simply mentioned loving yoga, only to have him grotesquely claim it was satanic oming and something to be reviled. Rather than indulge his delusion, I should have stood firm in my truth to see his inevitable meltdown, a clear sign of narcissistic abuse. So when you sense this prickly revisionism, use the perspective check method. Gently state your perspective with something like, "I really love classical music," then invite their viewpoint. "What kind of music do you enjoy?" A well-adjusted person will be happy to respectfully disagree. A narcissist will react defensively or even combatively, exposing their brittle ego. Clue 6. The emotional vampire is a trait to spot a narcissist in conversation. Have you ever interacted with someone who just instinctively seems to suck every ounce of positive energy right out of you for their own emotional sustenance? Narcissists are the ultimate draining emotional vampires, using insidious tactics like palabra triangulation to systematically tear you down over time. For instance, a narcissistic husband will often recruit allies like his parents or close friends to invalidate his wife's perspective, ensuring she's chronically outnumbered and gaslit into questioning her own reality. As they steadily dismantle your self-confidence and self-worth, the narcissist grows more powerful by spreading that doubt like a virus. Or they'll chip away at you through constant belittling comments disguised as joking or teasing, allowing plausible deniability when called out. "Wow, can't you take a joke? You're way too sensitive." Over time, these jokes become indistinguishable from emotional abuse, eating away at your spirit until you're a hollowed shell of your former self. So if you find yourself utterly depleted and detached from your spark after interactions with a certain person, that's a blaring warning sign you've been feasted on by an emotional vampire. Trust your gut instinct, establish firm boundaries, and starve these toxic forces of your precious life energies. Your well-being depends on it. In the end, knowledge is power against the narcissist's mind games. So subscribe now and turn on notifications, because in an upcoming video I'll reveal the scary reality of how narcissists use propaganda brainwashing techniques to control the narrative and sabotage your relationships. Stay woke to protect yourself and your loved ones. You deserve to feel seen, heard, and valued in every conversation. With the 6 clues we covered today, spotting the self-obsessed dialogue, the constant put-downs, the patronizing advice, the domineering airtime hogging, the hostile reaction to perceived criticism, and the utterly draining energy vampire tactics, you can now identify the narcissist's fraudulent behavior and shut it down before it consumes you. So walk away from any interactions that leave you feeling small, foolish, and empty inside. Embrace strategies like the probe and pivot, reflect and redirect, pause and assert methods to reclaim your power. And always trust your instincts if someone's mere presence seems to zap your spirit. That's the universe's brightest red flag warning you of an emotional parasite. You are worthy of real human connection and respect. Don't become another tragic victim drained by the narcissist's ravenous ego. Subscribe now for more life-saving insights to inoculate you against these dark forces and help you safeguard the precious light within you and your loved ones.